You know what we rarely talk about even in medicine? The quiet slowing that happens in our eyes and brain after 60. I'm not referring to disease, no macular degeneration or dementia diagnoses, just the subtle, everyday changes that so many of my patients describe. The mornings that begin in a blur until the world sharpens again 10 minutes later. The walk into a room followed by a blank pause, wondering why you went there. The dry burn in your eyes after only a few minutes in front of a screen. These are not trivial signs of aging, nor are they inevitable. They're signals, gentle but persistent, of systems in the body that are undernourished, overworked, and trying quietly to repair themselves. Recent data published in the Journal of Nutrition and Healthy Aging found that more than 90% of adults over 65 are deficient in at least one key nutrient required for nightly neural and ocular repair, not during the day, while we sleep. That means that every night millions of people close their eyes expecting restoration, but their bodies lack the raw materials needed to rebuild synaptic membranes, refresh retinal tissue, and stabilize the fragile biochemical rhythms that govern focus, memory, and visual clarity. I'm Dr. James Porter, and for more than 30 years I've studied how small, consistent choices shape the aging brain. If you're listening now, it's likely because you believe, or at least hope, that decline is not destiny. You're right, the brain and the eyes remain remarkably plastic throughout life. They respond dynamically to nourishment, oxygenation, and rest. Today I want to share 4 natural interventions, simple biological tools that work through the same pathways. Our most sophisticated treatments aim to support. They aren't supplements or pills, they're foods, each rich in compounds that have been shown to modulate inflammation, enhance circulation, and stimulate neurorepair during sleep. Let's begin with one you already know but may underestimate, the carrot. Carrots, when taken as a fresh extract or concentrated in a daily portion, provide beta-carotene, a precursor to vitamin A. Vitamin A is indispensable for retinal integrity, specifically for the photoreceptor cells that translate light into neural signals. Without adequate vitamin A, these cells atrophy. The result is the familiar cluster of complaints, night blindness, fluctuating focus, dry eyes, that too many adults simply accept. But vitamin A is only part of the picture. Carrots also contain the carotenoids lutein and zeaxanthin, pigments that accumulate directly in the macula, the small central area of the retina, responsible for detailed vision. Their role is both protective and restorative. They absorb excess light energy, reduce oxidative stress from decades of UV exposure and digital strain, and may even help repair photoreceptor membranes damaged by chronic inflammation. The same phytonutrients act within the brain. Carrots carry a lesser-known compound called falcarinol, which has been shown to reduce microinflammation in neural tissue and protect the lipid layers surrounding neurons. A controlled trial published in Frontiers in Aging Neuroscience in 2021 demonstrated that regular intake of beta-carotene-rich juice improved working memory and visual recall in adults over 65, particularly those already showing mild cognitive decline. Participants who consumed a modest glass each morning for 8 weeks improved by an average of 13% on standardized memory tests. That's not a miracle, but in practical terms, it can mean the difference between forgetting a conversation and remembering it with ease. One of the interesting biological nuances here is solubility. The carotenoids in carrots are fat-soluble, meaning the body absorbs them best when paired with a small amount of healthy fat. Olive oil, avocado, walnuts. The mechanism is straightforward. Dietary fat stimulates bile secretion, which emulsifies carotenoids for transport through the intestinal wall into the bloodstream, where they can reach the retina and the cortex. From a clinical standpoint, what matters is rhythm and consistency. A single glass of carrot extract taken with a balanced meal provides the retina and prefrontal cortex with the micronutrients they need to reset each morning. Over time, that simple ritual restores not only sharper sight, but the sense of clarity that often fades unnoticed. Now, to understand how circulation interacts with cognition and vision, we need to talk about another route, one far more potent in its vascular effects. The beet, most people in their 60s and 70s rarely consider blood flow when thinking about vision or memory, yet every neural and ocular process depends on it. When circulation slows, oxygen delivery drops, and with it the brain's capacity to think clearly and the eye's ability to perceive sharply. The most elegant nutrient cannot help a cell that isn't receiving oxygen. This is where beets hold extraordinary potential. They are rich in natural nitrates, compounds that the body converts into nitric oxide. Nitric oxide is a signaling molecule that tells blood vessels to relax and widen, a process known as vasodilation. When this occurs, oxygen-rich blood flows more freely to areas that need it most. The retina and the cerebral cortex clinical data support this mechanism. A study published in Nitric Oxide in 2020 showed that older adults who consumed beet-based juice daily experienced a measurable rise in cerebral blood flow, particularly in the frontal lobes, the regions governing attention, decision-making, and short-term memory. Participants demonstrated quicker reaction times and greater accuracy on cognitive tasks after just 4 weeks. The same principle applies to the eyes. Nitric oxide supports the microvascular network of the retina, protecting against the gradual narrowing of capillaries that contributes to age-related macular degeneration. Research published in the Journal of Ocular Pharmacology and Therapeutics in 2019 found that increased nitric oxide production preserved retinal thickness and reduced oxidative stress in aging tissue. What I find remarkable about this mechanism is its immediacy. Because nitric oxide acts within minutes, its effects can be felt the same day. A clearer head, more sustained focus, a subtle brightness in visual perception. It is one of the few dietary molecules that exerts such rapid and measurable influence on neurovascular function. From a therapeutic standpoint, beet intake works best when integrated with gentle movement. Walking shortly after consumption amplifies nitric oxide signaling, reinforcing vascular responsiveness throughout the body. This synergy between nutrition and motion is a powerful reminder that the brain's repair processes are not isolated. They depend on the body's dynamic rhythm. When patients tell me they feel mentally dull or that their eyes tire halfway through the afternoon, I often suspect a vascular component. Supporting blood flow with natural nitrates can restore not only oxygen delivery, but also confidence in one's cognitive vitality. Now, beyond circulation lies another form of renewal, one that happens inside the brain itself, at the cellular level. For that, we turn to one of nature's most concentrated neuroprotective foods, the blueberry. Blueberries are unique among fruits in their ability to cross the blood-brain barrier. Their deep pigment comes from anthocyanins, potent antioxidants that modulate inflammation and promote neurogenesis, the birth of new brain cells. This isn't poetic exaggeration, it's measurable biology. A landmark 2020 study in the Journals of Gerontology, Series A, showed that seniors who consumed a concentrated blueberry extract daily for 12 weeks improved their memory recall and processing speed, while brain imaging revealed enhanced activation in the hippocampus, the brain's memory hub. The researchers linked these effects to increased production of brain-derived neurotrophic factor, or BDNF, a protein that nurtures neuronal growth and resilience. Within the visual system, anthocyanins serve a parallel function. They protect retinal ganglion cells, which transmit visual information from the eye to the brain. Work published in Molecular Vision in 2019 demonstrated that regular intake of blueberry compounds maintained retinal structure and reduced cell loss in models of oxidative damage. This dual action, regenerating neurons and shielding retinal pathways, makes blueberries a quiet powerhouse in the preservation of cognition and vision. I've seen it clinically. Patients who commit to incorporating anthocyanin-rich foods often report subtle but meaningful changes: sharper recall, steadier focus, a sense that reading and comprehension require less effort. There's also a timing element. Consuming these compounds in the evening aligns them with the brain's nightly repair cycle. When BDNF levels naturally rise and oxidative clearance peaks, it's during this window that anthocyanins can integrate most effectively into the regenerative processes of neural tissue. One patient, a 74-year-old woman named Helen, once told me she feared she was losing her sharpness. Within weeks of regularly adding a modest serving of blueberry concentrate before bed, she noticed her mind felt clearer in the morning and her eyes less strained. While anecdotes don't replace data, they often echo what the science already suggests. The aging brain retains its ability to respond if we give it the right molecular signals. And that brings us to our final intervention. One less colorful, perhaps, but just as critical. To truly sustain cognitive and visual health, we must support the cellular scaffolding that keeps neurons and retinal cells resilient. For that, we turn to a plant most of us take for granted, spinach. Spinach is, in many ways, the quiet cornerstone of neuronutritional medicine. Among leafy greens, it contains one of the richest natural profiles of compounds known to protect both neurons and photoreceptors. When we juice or lightly blend spinach, we liberate lutein and zeaxanthin, two carotenoids that concentrate in the macula, the central region of the retina responsible for detail, color, and focus. Over time, the density of these pigments diminishes, leaving the macula vulnerable to oxidative stress, ultraviolet damage, and low-grade inflammation. These processes are the true precursors of blurred vision and age-related macular degeneration. What's striking is that restoring lutein and zeaxanthin levels through diet can measurably improve visual performance. A 2020 study in Nutrients found that older adults with higher plasma concentrations of these carotenoids demonstrated better contrast sensitivity and faster visual processing speed. In simpler terms, they could perceive edges, colors, and motion with greater precision and respond more quickly to what they saw. But the value of spinach extends far beyond the eye. It's also one of the most efficient dietary sources of folate, the B vitamin that underpins neurotransmitter synthesis. Folate participates in the methylation reactions that produce dopamine and serotonin, the brain's chemicals for motivation and mood. It also regulates homocysteine, an amino acid derivative that, in excess, becomes toxic to neurons and strongly correlates with cognitive decline. In 2018, a controlled trial published in the American Journal of Clinical Nutrition showed that adults with low folate levels performed significantly worse on memory and attention tests. But their scores improved once folate was restored through diet. Spinach delivers this compound in a biologically active form, together with vitamin K, which supports the phospholipid membranes surrounding brain cells and contributes to myelin maintenance, the insulating sheath that allows signals to travel quickly between neurons. This synergy is what makes spinach so remarkable. Its nutrients don't act in isolation. They cooperate to reduce inflammation, repair cellular membranes, and reactivate dormant signaling pathways involved in cognition and visual focus. It's the kind of gentle systemic repair that medications often attempt to imitate. There is one caveat: spinach naturally contains oxalates, which can interfere with calcium absorption and may be problematic for individuals with kidney stone risk. The key, as always, is moderation and rhythm, enough to nourish without overburdening the system. In practice, small daily servings are far more effective than occasional excess. When people reintroduce nutrient-dense greens into their lives, the effect can be subtle yet profound. The world appears brighter, thoughts feel more fluid, motivation quietly returns. These are not miracles. They are the biological consequences of replenishing what time has depleted. Taken together, carrot for retinal repair, beet for circulation, blueberry for neuroregeneration, spinach for structural resilience, these foods form a comprehensive, evidence-based strategy for supporting cognition and vision across the lifespan. But as with all interventions, the secret lies not in any single component, but in timing, consistency, and the body's own rhythm. Our nervous system does not repair evenly throughout the day. It follows circadian cycles of activation and restoration. The eyes and brain are most metabolically active in the morning and late afternoon, while deep repair occurs during sleep. Aligning nutrient intake with these rhythms amplifies their effect. A typical plan might look like this. Begin the morning with carotenoid-rich nourishment to awaken the retina and prefrontal cortex. In the early afternoon, when energy and focus wane, support cerebral blood flow with nitrate sources that enhance oxygen delivery. As evening approaches, provide the brain with anthocyanins and polyphenols that facilitate antioxidant defense and BDNF expression during sleep. Integrate folate-rich greens earlier in the day to stabilize neurotransmitter production and maintain steady mood and attention. The structure is simple, but the physiology beneath it is profound. You're not boosting anything in the superficial sense. You're synchronizing nutrition with your body's repair cycles, restoring coherence to systems that modern life has fragmented. Over weeks, these small acts compound. Microvessels regain elasticity, synapses signal more efficiently, visual fields brighten, and cognitive fatigue recedes. The process is quiet. You may not notice it on day one, or even in the first week. Healing rarely announces itself with fanfare. It arrives through the absence of struggle. The moment you realize you can read longer without strain, recall names without effort, or greet the morning without that familiar haze, and perhaps most importantly, it reaffirms something deeper, that the capacity to heal does not vanish with age, it simply requires the right environment, the nutrients, the oxygen, the rest, and above all, the belief that the brain and body remain responsive. When I speak with patients about neuroregeneration or vision repair, I often encounter skepticism. They've been told too many times that decline is inevitable, that after a certain age, the mind and body can only be maintained, not improved. But neuroscience tells a different story. The aging brain is not a static structure, it's a living network, continuously sculpted by experience and biology. Synapses may weaken, yes, but they can also reform. Capillaries may narrow, but they can widen again. The retina may thin, but its photoreceptors can recover function if the underlying support returns. This understanding shifts the narrative from resignation to possibility. The foods we've discussed, carrots, beets, blueberries, spinach, are not remedies in isolation. They are tools for communicating with the body, signaling it to resume the work it already knows how to do: repair, restore, and renew. Modern medicine tends to focus on pharmacology and procedure, but biology has always responded first to nourishment. Molecules matter, because they are the language the body speaks. When you provide the right molecules, you're not forcing change, you're reminding the system of what health feels like. Patients who embrace this approach often describe an awakening, not a sudden surge, but a gentle return. The world seems more vivid, their thoughts more anchored, emotions more balanced. They report that colors look richer, music feels deeper, conversations become easier to follow. These changes may sound poetic, but they reflect real neural recalibration, improved neurotransmitter signaling, oxygenation, and synaptic plasticity. Of course, none of this happens in isolation. Diet is not a substitute for movement, for sunlight, for adequate rest or emotional connection. Healing is an ecosystem, not a checklist. When we align our choices with the body's design, when we eat in rhythm, sleep in rhythm, breathe in rhythm, we restore the synchrony that underlies health. That's why I often remind my patients. Regeneration begins not with what you consume, but with what you believe. The expectation of healing is itself a biological signal. Hope changes physiology. It alters hormone levels, reduces inflammatory markers, even influences gene expression. So if there's one message I want to leave you with, it's this: aging is not an illness, it's an adaptation. And every adaptation can be guided. You are not at the mercy of your biology, you are in dialogue with it. The neurons that carry your memories are listening. The eyes that let you perceive beauty are still responsive. The vessels that deliver life to every cell remain capable of renewal. What they require is partnership, your participation in their recovery. Start small. Begin with one conscious choice each day. A glass of beet juice, a handful of blueberries, a serving of greens. Take a short walk after, breathe deeply, and remind yourself, I'm teaching my body to remember how to heal. This is not a quick fix, but a return to rhythm, to respect for the remarkable intelligence within you. Over time, you will notice what so many before you have discovered, that clarity of vision and clarity of thought are not separate. When the brain sees better, the mind feels better. Healing, after all, is not the opposite of aging. It is the expression of life continuing to respond.